This video is about Wildshape, Polymorph, and the lesser known use of the Beyond Link via Chrome plugin. So, as you may already know, the EAR, Extra Asset Registration plugin, has support for transformations. You can transform a mini into another mini. Unlike its predecessor, CMP, EAR allows you to transform a core mini or a custom mini into a core mini or a custom mini and back. So let's demonstrate that. I have here a character named Sheila, and if we look at the character, we can see that it is an elf, and we can wild shape into, let's say, a bear. To do that, we open up our library, go to beasts to find what we want to transform into, in this case a bear, and to activate the transformation, you hold down the control key while selecting from the library. So if you hold control while selecting from the library, instead of bringing out another mini of the selected type, it will transform the currently selected mini into that. So I will demonstrate. I will hold control and then click on the bear, and voila, our elf has turned into a bear. So visually, we already have transformations. Now, of course, you're going to ask, wait, but what about my roles? I use the dice selection plugin, and if I have two different forms, I want two different sets of roles. Well, yes, that isn't a problem. If you haven't figured out how to do that yet, the documentation for the dice selection plugin tells you how to do that at the end of the documentation. But I will go through that today. Basically, what you do is you create a dice selection macro file with the desired roles for your base class, so Sheila, and then you create a second file for your alternate form, let's say Sheila bear form. The first you will save with probably your character name. The second one you need to save with a obviously different name. Something like Sheila bear form might work, but if you're too lazy to type that, then you might want to go with Sheila 2 or something like much shorter. So I will demonstrate that. If I change back now into Sheila, now when I do transform, because this is a generic mini, it's not a specific mini, I am going to have to rename the character back to Sheila. But here's Sheila, and if I activate the dice selection macros, I can see that we've got selections here. I just put in a few things here, but we've got selections for her current form. We have a staff, we've got initiative, unarmed strike, and the usual custom. I'm just going to roll to get rid of that. Okay, so now we can do the transformation again. We transform into the bear. Similarly, we're going to rename this to Sheila bear form. That's what I saved my alternate dice selection macros with. And now if we go and activate the dice selection macros, we can see we have a different list. We've got initiative again, but different value. And we've got claw here, attack, and the usual custom. So now we not only can transform visually, but we can actually transform our dice selection macros with that. The same thing would apply for if you're using the rule set 5e, same kind of trick works. They all work based on looking up the character name to get the corresponding stats. So same thing would work there. But of course, you're going to ask, well, that's great. I've got my dice rolls, but what about my stats? My hit points aren't changing, and my alternate stats are not changing. Well, yes. Currently, the extra asset registration plugin here does not copy stats over. So if you've got your base form and you've got your hit points set, and let's say you've got some speed set and maybe your AC set, when you transform into a different form, none of that's going to be there. Well, that's a problem, is it? Well, not really. If you think about it, copying over the stats isn't really all that useful. With both the Wildshape and Polymorph, when you change into your alternate form, some of the stats remain the same, but some of them change. So copying over the stats is really not all that useful because you would still have to change about half of them. So what's the solution? Well, I'm here to tell you that I've got a solution, and it's available with the existing plugins right now. No need to make anything new. So the trick is to use the Beyond Link via Chrome plugin. Now, normally the Beyond Link via Chrome plugin is used to read information from character sheets such as D&D Beyond and get that into TaleSpire. The Chrome extension portion of it is easy to edit, so it does not have to be used with D&D Beyond. It can be used with other sources. But what if you don't want to have your character sheet somewhere on the internet and to have this Chrome extension reading stuff from it? What if you just want to configure your stats locally, but you want them to change when you change forms? Well, we can do that. The trick is in how the Beyond Link via Chrome plugin actually works. It has three components to it. There is the actual Chrome extension that you load in Chrome that gets all the data from your source, and it passes it to a server. It's referred to as the Beyond Link server. This server is started automatically when TaleSpire starts up and is automatically turned off when TaleSpire is ended. And its responsibility is to take that information and do something with it. So it looks at what other plugins you have and creates the necessary files for those plugins. So for example, if you have the dice selection plugin, it will recognize that and it will use the information that it obtains from the Chrome extension and create the dice selection macro files for you. If you, on the other hand, have rules set 5th edition, then it will create the necessary files for that plugin. But there's a third portion of that, and that is the actual TaleSpire Beyond Link plugin. What it does is it looks at the file folder where it's running, and it looks for files with stat names. So things like your HP, your AC, potentially initiative, move. Anything that was collected by the Chrome extension and that the server didn't know what to do with, it just converts into files with the attribute name and puts them there into the folder for somebody else to use, which is what the Beyond Link plugin does. It then looks for things like your HP, reads from the file, and updates it in TaleSpire. This approach means that if you have problems communicating with, let's say, the D&D Beyond Link server or their website, and you're unable to extract character information, the plugin that's running inside of TaleSpire will not really be affected because it's still going to be reading older data, but it's going to be data that's always available there in the file format, so it's not going to cause a big performance hit on TaleSpire. Now, we can use that to our advantage. We know that this plugin updates the stats based on these files that we have lying in the file folder, and we also know that it uses the character name to figure out which files to use. So we can forget about the Chrome extension portion of it. We can forget about the server portion of it, and we can just make these files that the server would end up making, and that's how we can get our stats updated. So very similar to the dice selection macro files, we can create a file with Sheila.hp, Sheila.ac, Sheila.move, whatever attributes we want. And then we can do the same thing with her alternate form. So Sheila Bearform.hp, Sheila Bearform.move, Sheila.bearform.ac. Fill those values in, and now again, when we're in Sheila form, the Beyond Link plugin is going to look at Sheila.hp, Sheila.ac, and all those, and update the Sheila Mini. When we transform into the Bear and rename the Mini to Sheila Bear Form, it's now going to look for all the files that begin with Sheila Bear Form, and therefore our stats will update. So now when you transform and rename the character appropriately, the corresponding stats will be picked up, which can now be different, and you won't have to go and modifying half the stats to make your alternate form be correct. So that's about it.